So, Hannah, this is our first recording that we are doing in 2021.
Yeah, and I mean, to say 2021 started off strong would be a lie. To be fair, like, I've worked most of 2021 already.
I have worked none of 2021.
Yeah, I mean, New Year's Eve was very underwhelming. We safely stayed at home, just had ourselves a little me and you party. There was alcohol involved.
There was alcohol involved.
Multiple glasses of alcohol involved.
Yes.
We watched the countdown. We thanked every New Year's Eve god out there that Jenny McCarthy was not making out with Donnie Wahlberg.
Yes.
And then we cheersed, had a little drink, and then we played Mary Kate and Ashley a little bit drunk. 2021's gotta be a better year than 2020.
It has to. It has to be, right?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a lot to be excited about.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I don't know. We talked about this. We don't do resolutions.
No.
At least I don't.
I don't do resolutions either.
I don't follow through. I'm a quitter.
I never follow through.
Two, I just think it's kind of like a dumb, like, why do I have to make a resolution on a specific day?
Yeah. I kind of took last year off. Not from, like, being active, but...
I were going to say just from life.
Oh, I mean, in some cases, sure.
Just a year.
No, I mean, not from being, like, active in general, because I'm active at my job, but working out fitness. Mm-hmm. I was at the very beginning of last year, but then, everything happened, and...
Well, it's
there
hard.
Are limitations.
It was hard to work out, especially if you live in a place where it snows a bunch, and it's cold. You don't want to be outside, but it's also hard to go to a gym.
Plus, the gym that I go to is still closed. It hasn't been open since the last time I was there, which was in March.
And you can't do, like, workout classes.
Right.
Stuff
and
like that.
Normally I like to do, like, hot yoga, and I can't do that right now. So I would like to find ways to be more active in terms of working out.
Oh no. Okay. I'm gonna talk while Alyssa grabs something, because you guys cannot see what just happened, but in true Alyssa fashion, she just dumped her alcoholic drink on our parents' carpet, which is white, and good thing is the drink was a Moscow Mule, so it's mostly a clear drink.
Great news, it was a clearish drink.
Yes, but for those of you who don't know, that's a lot.
It's not that much.
Alyssa has a habit of spilling things on herself, on the floor. She breaks things a lot. One time we got a ice cream cake for one of our birthdays, and bear in mind this was probably 5 years ago, so Alyssa was like 17, 18.
5 years ago? I was not 17, 18.
Okay, well, I don't know how old you were. You were way too old to...
You don't know how old I am?
No, I said I don't know how old you were at the time.
Okay. Jesus.
Anyways, what happened was we all finished eating, and I look over at Alyssa, and she has chocolate all over her arms. And she did not know she had chocolate all over her arms. So this is a common theme for her. It's really a miracle she doesn't spill something. So she's currently cleaning it up, which is why I'm the only person talking. You can probably hear her in the background, little commentary here and there. But yeah, I mean, she's basically a child.
I actually embarrassed myself like a month ago or so with sushi. I just dropped a roll of sushi just in soy sauce, and then I couldn't get it back out, and it fell apart, and I was just made fun of endlessly.
That's also the worst, because then you just got all the sushi bits in your soy sauce.
Yes, and I tried to get them all out, but there's too many bits.
That's life.
I know, I just performance anxiety,
Yeah.
Welcome. Here we are with Research, Rank, Repeat. I am one of your hosts, Alyssa.
And this is Hannah.
Hannah, you know that birds can do it, and bees can do it.
So let's stop talking and let's get to it. Let's fall in love.
No, I mean, let's do a podcast.
Oh.
I don't.
Okay.
I'm not looking to fall in
Oh,
love.
that's okay. Okay.
I was just trying to set the tone.
Yeah.
I don't like it when you use that tone.
The reason being we are quoting TV shows is because this is a new segment, which we're going to try and do
Periodically.
maybe every 2 months or something.
Yeah, periodically.
So what we're going to do is watch just the pilot episodes of TV shows and rank them on what we think is the best just for a pilot.
Now, the category we were doing specifically for this time is shows from the popular channel ABC Family, also now known as Freeform. And to be upfront, we have seen some of these shows that we did pilots for because we were frequent connoisseurs of ABC Family as young teenagers and high schoolers. So we are merely judging based on the pilots that we watched, not the whole show.
So what we did is we've watched 12 pilots. We're going to do, in the future, we're going to do another 12. So we didn't include every single ABC Family or Freeform show just because there's a lot of them. We kind of went through and picked the popular ones, the ones that maybe we had heard of, or ones that we haven't heard of and just were curious. And we kind of tried to pick ones from mid-2000s up until, I think the most recent one we watched was like 2018 is when it aired.
No, it was 2019.
2019.
One on the Mirror in 2019.
But yeah, so we've got 12. We're going to do a little discussion and then we'll get to our ranking. I just want to say something before we start because for the longest time, up into an embarrassingly late age in life, I just thought it was a weird coincidence that every show's first episode was called Pilot. I didn't realize that a pilot episode was a thing. And I was like, I remember watching Lost and I was like,
Yes.
oh, it's called Pilot.
Because
and then
the pilot dies.
Yes, which that one has irony.
I think that was on purpose, to be honest.
Right. But then I watched another show and I was like, oh, it's so weird. It's also called Pilot. And then I got to like 3, 4, 5 more shows and I was like, this is such a weird coincidence. And then it finally hit me that every single show, for the most part, their first episode is just called a pilot.
It is the pilot.
Yes.
A lot of times because they might only record a pilot and then if they're given a green light, they can then continue from there. So usually it's just easier to call it pilot.
I'm just going to get into a little background. This is all from the most trusted source on the web, Wikipedia.
Our favorite website of all time.
Yes. So to all the middle school teachers who told me not to use Wikipedia, thank you. Your hatred has made me stronger in life, and I applaud you. Okay, so a little background on ABC Family. The network was launched in 1977, and would you believe it, Alyssa, if I said it was launched as a religious channel?
Really? 1977?
Yeah. That's when the original network launched, and it was meant to be a religious channel.
I mean, that does not surprise me.
So in 2001, they sold the channel to Disney. That's when the name was changed to ABC Family. They started to introduce new shows in like the 2006 to 2008 time frame that were received negatively from parents. They thought that the shows...
Scandalous.
Yeah, were too risky...
Risque.
That they stepped away from the network's family-friendly roots.
Traditional family values, I just said in quotations.
Yes. They said that ABC Family was only out to get more viewers, that they didn't care about what the content was and what kind of message it was sending. People mostly had the issues with like the teen pregnancy, underage drinking, and like LGBTQ related shows. It ended up in 2016, they changed the name to Freeform. They were trying to move away from the family, and they wanted to probably make it so that people couldn't say that you're giving the wrong message.
But could they have picked a better name than Freeform?
You don't love Freeform?
I don't even call it Freeform because it's not good.
Yeah, I think they could have done something a little bit better. Do you remember? Because it was like ABC Family, a whole new kind of family.
Yes.
And that was kind of when those shows were coming out.
Because they were trying to portray non-traditional white, 2-parent, 2 kids, house dog lifestyles.
Heterosexual,
middle class lifestyles,
Yeah.
yes.
just got a little bit of background. I didn't want to do a whole lot, but
That's fair.
That's just a brief. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna discuss each show a little bit. We're gonna say, based just off the pilot, would you watch that TV show? It's kind of hard because some of these obviously we've watched.
Right.
Kind of say who our favorite character was and maybe if we had a favorite scene or line. And just any comments we had. And then at the end, we will rank them from worst to best.
We also will be providing a little bit of background about the shows, whatever we could find, because some of these shows, it was like a 2-sentence bit on Wikipedia.
And my favorite thing is me and Alyssa have split these shows in half, and we've each written our own summary. Just a little fun summary about the pilot.
Yes, just based on the pilot, just a couple little sentences, whatever we decided was important to know.
Yes. So what would you like to start with?
What is your first show that you have written
Well,
down?
the first one I did was 10 Things I Hate About You.
Okay, I've got it.
Okay, so the background for 10 Things I Hate About You premiered in 2009. It ran for 1 year before it was canceled, and it is based off the 1999 film of the same name, which is based off of Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew.
Yes.
And the show itself premiered, it had 1.6 million viewers, which at the time was a record for a 30-minute comedy debut. And I said show was canceled, it was due to low ratings eventually. Critic scores, it had an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, 66 out of 100 on Metacritic, and a 7.3 out of 10 on IMDb. Okay, so the summary I wrote for 10 Things I Hate About You. Welcome to a redone concept minus Heath Ledger and Joseph Gordon-Levitt, where the lawn sleeve shirt over t-shirt look is never ending. Join Mose, Paolo, and the gang as we watch yet another high school show.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Now, did you notice that the dad is the same dad from the movie?
Yes.
So he reprised his role as the father in both the movie and the television show. I just thought that was interesting while I was watching.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to do those reboots. It's interesting to do a reboot of a movie
Into a television
show because a lot of times it's a television show that reboots as a television show, like stuff like that.
Or rebooting a movie as a movie.
Right. So I think that's kind of a tricky thing to do. I wonder if they wanted to keep one character just to kind of make the transition smoother. I'm not really sure.
They also got the director of the movie to direct, I think it was about 10 episodes of the show. She directed, or he, I'm sorry, I don't know the gender, I don't remember the name. Mm-hmm. They directed the pilot and then continued to direct more episodes throughout it. And they also got the same composer who did the music and the sound mixing for the movie, brought them back as well. So it seems like they were really wanting to capture that same feel with a new spin on it.
Okay, that is interesting. What I noticed about the show was that the outfits were very mid-2000s.
Yes, they were.
The guys layering the long sleeve shirts over the short sleeved.
The tank top.
Yes.
Yeah, camisole looks. It actually has a pretty stacked cast in a way.
Yeah, so it's got Mose from Ned's Classified.
You've got the girl from Camp Rock, who's too cool.
Too cool.
You've got the glowy guy from Sky High.
Yep, we have the dad from 10 Things I Hate About You, who's also in Princess Diaries.
Paolo. Anyways, did you feel like that all of these kids came across as incredibly desperate?
So what I noticed was that they very much, hammered in the fact that their school cliques, that people fit stereotypes, and they just overdid it to death.
Some of it worked. Some of it felt very heavy-handed. Sorry. Especially with, the popular tropes I found. Also the fact that the one girl described the bad boy as him knowing the taste of human flesh, which I was like, is that really a trope of a bad boy? I'm like, that seems a little strange.
Yeah. Something I want to hit on, because I was just going to hit on it at some point. To me, a pilot of a TV show is so interesting, because essentially you're given 20 to 40 minutes, depending on how long your TV show is, to introduce a bunch of characters, get us caught up to where you are in the story, and to make it in a way that you're interested but not confused, and also to introduce new conflict so that you want to keep watching.
Right. They have to give you the incentive to continue the show.
Right. And I think with this show, the problem was, I don't know if it was just because it felt so high school, that I wrote, like, I'm sure as a teenager I would have enjoyed it more. And we
watched the pilot.
We did, but I don't think we really watched the show.
We watched a few episodes here and there, but
Right.
I think it was on at a time that conflicted with
another
something or sports or something. Because I do remember watching several episodes of the show.
I think my biggest issue with this show was that there wasn't enough new stuff introduced that made me, like, think, like, I want to keep seeing what this conflict's going to be.
Yeah. There were definitely some issues, but I didn't dislike it. There were some dialogue choices that were really interesting and really funny. Like, they called the one girl a teenage Kim Jong-il.
Mm-hmm.
They, like, my favorite line from the one character, Cameron, he was interested in the popular sister. He just, like, says, he's like, oh, yay, happy day. And just the way he said it, I was like, this is the right amount of awkward, where it's not over the top, but it's, like, entertaining. The only other thing I wanted to say is that this show's logo is maybe the worst logo for a show and opening that any of the shows we watched. I watched it and I was blown away at how terrible it was. So bad. Okay, now, are you ready to get into our favorites and...
Yeah, so I think we should do a favorite character moment, and then at the end say if you would watch the show. For me, the favorite character would be the dad.
I thought about the dad, but I ended up putting Cameron.
Okay. The reason I did the dad is because I felt like he had good humor. He did have some, like, good, heartfelt parenting moments. He's single dad.
Yep.
And at times his humor was a little too much dad joke.
Yes.
But he also made up for it for having some of these, like, small, heartfelt moments, which I enjoyed.
Yeah, the dad was my second choice, but I just really enjoyed Cameron's awkwardness. It felt very Linguini. Mm-hmm. Like, it wasn't too over and over the top. Like, his friend was definitely that type of awkward that I'm like, we don't need this. But Cameron felt like a realistic awkward, but could also be funny and, like, genuine. So I liked his portrayal.
Yeah. My favorite moment is when... I can't remember who it was. They were talking with the principal about public school.
Yes.
And she says every student should get fairness and respect. And the principal starts to laugh and is like, no, that's private school.
Yes.
I was like, that's a good humor.
I thought about that. I ended up picking, I just liked the back and forth with the closet bit, where, like, the popular girl and her boyfriend are in the closet, and then the other girl is in the closet, and they're just talking about modeling, and then they are found in the closet. It's just like, she's like, we have chemistry together. And it's just, I just liked that back and forth. I thought it was entertaining.
Yes. If we're being honest, as an adult, I don't think I would keep watching the show.
Okay.
As a kid, I probably would have, but I'm going to say that no, I would not keep watching it.
So I said tentatively, I guess, like a yes. I wrote, yeah, sure. Because it's like, I don't think that's a show that I would maybe watch the whole thing of, especially because it only lasted one season. But at least for the dialogue, I would just be interested enough to see if that keeps up post-pilot. Because sometimes things change, you know, after a pilot episode, and the show kind of shifts tone, or they get different writers. So I would think I could be interested enough to continue.
Right. So the next show should be Bunheads.
Bunheads, okay. All right. I'm there.
So this show ran from 2012 to 2013. It is created by Amy Sherman Palladino, who created Gilmore Girls.
Yes.
Show ran for 18 episodes, was canceled after one season, and originally ABC Family wanted the show to be their, like, Glee. And when Amy came along, she said, I don't think we should do, like, a singing show. I think we should try and do a show about something else in the arts, which is where the ballet concept came from. The pilot had 1.64 million viewers. It had 100% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 74 out of 100 on Metacritic. Summary of this show. Welcome to the third reboot of Gilmore Girls, where we watch Cameron from Ferris Bueller be a creep, and where Emily Gilmore is still queen.
Emily Gilmore is still queen.
Still queen. The first thing, this show, I could tell it was the creator of Gilmore Girls.
That was my first thought, is that the quick, dry humor, which is very well known, like the quick, fast, witty dialogue, was there.
Even the town that they ended up moving to was very much like the characters in the shop reminded me of kind of like...
The Stars Hollow.
Yeah. And I did see that a lot of people from Gilmore Girls made appearances during this season. Mm-hmm. But yes, I definitely got a Gilmore Girls vibe. Cameron, who I don't remember what his name was in the show, but he was giving me like creepy serial killer vibes.
Well, yeah, I think that was the point, is it's this like weirdo guy who's obsessed with this dancer and marries her and takes him back to a house he shares with his mom. That is such a bizarre premise, though. Like, that is not where I thought the show was gonna go, just based on the limited knowledge I had about it.
No, and we both said, like, there's no way that they end up staying together.
Something had to happen.
Which it did. Spoiler. But I really liked Sutton Foster.
Yes.
And Emily. I don't remember what the actress's name is, to be honest.
I just keep calling her Emily Gilmore. I'm sorry
anyways,
to the actress.
I really liked their interactions together. I'm actually kind of glad that the show focuses on the two of them.
Yes.
And I actually think that it's a really interesting premise for a show.
That's what I thought most of my notes were about, is that it's got some weird twists and turns and a lot of unexpected things happen that I was not ready for. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was really interesting.
You know, we'll just say at the end, technically we don't know that he, like, died, but
I think it's implied that he's dead.
Right, he was in a car accident, the guy that she gets married to. And like I said, I think they just needed to clear him out. That sounds morbid. But to make a connection for Emily and Sutton Foster.
Michelle is her name.
Michelle, okay.
That was really well done.
Yeah, I had a fun time watching the show.
I was pretty invested.
The girls who played the ballerinas were actually, like, they felt like
realistic
teenagers. Girls.
Yeah.
The concerns they would have and all that. Mm-hmm. I thought there was some good subject matter brought up in terms of kind of body image.
Mm-hmm. Especially as someone who used to dance as a teenager, body image issues are very, very much a thing in the dancing world. Like, you're told from the age of 8 or 7 that when you're performing you should be sucking and squeezing. Mm-hmm. And, like, it's not great to be telling young girls that when, you know, they're growing and
right.
Yeah. May not have the dancer's body.
Right. So I thought it was good that they kind of brought that up. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it.
I did too.
Yeah.
I had a good time with it.
Okay. So my favorite character has got to be Emily Gilmore.
I ended up picking Michelle.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know if I've seen a main character like that before. I was just really interested in the way that she was interacting with the environment and with, to jump ahead, my favorite scene was when her and Emily Gilmore are having that conversation in the bar. It was my favorite scene. I just really liked all of her interactions with the show. I still love Emily Gilmore. Clearly she's amazing, but I just was really drawn to her as a main character.
Yeah. Favorite moment, I did really like the bar scene. I think the scene that I did like, though, was the audition, like, practice scene, where you kind of see her interact with the girls for the first time, and then you see Emily kind of look at her and realize, like, that she does have talent, and that she could probably be a useful asset.
And she's not necessarily, like, marrying her son for money
right.
or, you know, whatever.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I would watch the show.
Yep. Yeah, I would definitely watch the show, and I have previously considered watching the show. I've just never gotten to it.
And I mean, seeing as it's only 18 episodes.
Yeah, it's not a huge investment.
Which, you know, they wouldn't get the ending that they wanted.
Right. I knew about the show going in is that it critically did really well. People who watched it really liked it. It just fell victim to cancellation, as apparently a lot of ABC Family shows do get canceled after 1 season or 2 seasons.
Yeah, we'll talk about it, but there's quite a few that only made it through 1 season.
All right, what's next?
Show should be The Fosters.
The Fosters, okay.
So full disclosure, Fosters is a show that I've seen like 4 seasons of. So I was going into this with kind of a bit of a bias, but I tried to just focus on the pilot.
Yes.
So this show started in 2013 to 2018. It was 104 episodes. So that's pretty long, seeing as most of the shows we've talked about so far have only been one season.
Was it 5 seasons?
Yeah,
Or-
5 seasons. Okay. It was followed by a spin-off called Good Trouble, which focuses on which focuses on Callie and Mariana's characters post-college life. The pilot for The Fosters had 1.42 million viewers, and the creators for the show wanted to make a show based off the foster system, as they felt that that was something that wasn't portrayed a lot on television and movies. And one of the creators did have previous experience in the foster system that she drew off of for inspiration. And Jennifer Lopez was an executive producer on this show. That had a 97% Rotten Tomatoes and a 70 out of 100 on Metacritic. The show got a lot of praise for its portrayal of LGBTQ
queer characters.
LGBTQ characters. It was nominated for a couple GLAAD awards. And before the show started, the conservative group 1 Million Moms,
Of course,
tried to get audiences to boycott the show, saying that they thought the adoption aspect was wonderful, but they thought the fact of having a same-sex couple and an interracial couple was not moving in the right direction.
not with those traditional family values, Hannah.
So that's great. But anyways...
Do you have a summary for us?
I do. From executive producer Jennifer Lopez comes a show that asks the question, is it illegal to date my foster sibling?
God, I knew that was going to come up. Oh.
I know that's a concept that happens later in the show, but there were hints of it in the pilot.
It made me uncomfortable.
Okay. I'm glad we can agree.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to know what your thoughts were, since this is a show that I've seen and know a lot about.
One thing I noticed is they had a high emphasis on dramatic pauses in the show, which I thought was interesting. I really liked the relationship between the moms.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that they seemed to communicate really well and like had each other's backs, and clearly there were some struggles and issues, and it seems like they were able to work through those. And also with like her ex-husband being the one son's father.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon, is that his name?
Yeah, Brandon.
And I liked that they seemed to, although I'm sure it's awkward to work with your ex in terms of being police officer partners with them, it was good to see them at least being on civil terms and seem to get along for the good of their child. I thought it was interesting. It definitely seems like a teen drama show, but there are some, concepts, the whole, adopting foster kids, and clearly we see really, like, horrible things, with the one, Callie, having the abusive foster parent and trying to get her brother back, and the one girl, the other adopted daughter, Mariana meeting with her biological mom, and she basically is just there to get money and then leaves immediately. It's just, so I liked some of those concepts, I would say.
I think what I enjoyed about the pilot was the character interactions. The scenes where they just have one or two characters. I really like the way they were able to do so many character interactions and not make it too much.
Right.
I just think this show is kind of important because I agree there's not a lot of shows and stuff that focus on foster kids and in the environments, and there is a lot of issues within that industry, not industry, like
within the foster system.
Right. So, I mean, unfortunately you do get situations where kids are being abused, and where, obviously it's heartbreaking anytime you're dealing with someone whose birth parent doesn't really want to see them and just is trying to get money from them. Like, I think there's a lot of really mature concepts that kind of, for me, makes it a little bit more edgy than just like
a traditional teen drama. Right. Yeah, I would agree with that.
But yeah, I mean, unless you have any other comments.
That's about it. So, my favorite character was just the moms, both of them. I couldn't pick between either or. I liked both of them, and I liked their relationship, so I just said moms.
I went with Lena, one of the moms. With her, it's just like you get to see her kind of like her heart come through and her humor. And actually, my favorite line was her line where she goes, As a feminist, I am totally offended, but as her wife, thank you.
Yeah,
Because I enjoyed that line.
it was funny.
Did you have like a favorite line or scene or anything?
I didn't know we were doing favorite lines.
Well,
so,
it's just a favorite
but
moment.
so I did favorite scenes. I liked the awkward police office scene where she finds out she's working with her ex-husband, and just like that whole dialogue and interaction I thought was really great.
Well, she just is like, get out of my
Okay.
office.
Yeah, she's like, okay, great.
So would I watch the show? I mean, obviously I have,
You
so I
watched it.
guess I would say yes.
I said yeah, I think so as well. I know it. You've said, as someone who's watched some of the show, that it kind of falls off and in later seasons.
It gets a little way off the radar. But I mean, I will say, for the show's defense, they do have a lot of like really things that need to be brought
Right.
up.
What would be considered controversial subject matter.
So for that alone, I applaud the show for
Yeah.
being willing to explore concepts that not every show is willing to do.
Right, I think that's important.
Yeah. Next show would be Guilt,
Okay.
which is actually your show.
Oh, is it?
No, just kidding.
I was gonna say, I hope it's not, because I don't have any background on it.
Thought it was.
I hope not.
Okay. So Guilt aired in 2016, another show that just made it one season. It was canceled after 10 episodes. This show had 500,000 viewers and Rotten Tomatoes of 60% and a Metacritic of 52 out of 100. Couldn't really find any background on this show. Little summary. Okay. Here's my summary. There's been a murder and you are a suspect. A classic whodunit show with lots of characters and a whole lot of confusion.
What a mess.
This show was... there's a way to introduce a lot of characters in a pilot and not make it confusing.
And this was not it.
I would say, like, the Fosters, the one we just talked about, they had a lot of characters, but I was not confused.
So, the interesting thing is, this is the kind of show I would normally be interested. I really like the murder, suspense, mystery, whodunit type scenario, but just alone based on this pilot, we were kind of talking that it almost felt like they were covering several episodes worth of material in the pilot, because you have the murder, you have the main character fleeing, you have all these people coming in, you have, you know, these developments of her being, she was pregnant, right?
The girl who died,
The girl who died, who's murdered, she's pregnant, she had an affair with the professor. Like, they just introduced all these things that it felt like, to me, there was too much going on. There were so many people and so many events and characters introduced as possible suspects that I didn't know what to follow.
It felt like a show that knew it only had so much time. That it felt like they
Yeah.
were trying to get everything they wanted to get in. I think part of the problem, too, was I didn't care about a lot of the characters.
No, they didn't give hardly any of the characters enough time for me to understand what their deal was or know things about them.
Or to sympathize with them. I just wasn't interested, to be honest. And like you said, this would be a show that normally, like, I would probably be interested in because...
It's the kind of trash TV I like.
Right. It's got conflict, it's got mystery, but I didn't care about the characters. I didn't even write a favorite moment or scene because I didn't really have one.
The only thing I wrote down for a favorite scene is when Billy Zane is telling that lady having sex to be quiet. Yeah. That's the only thing I, like, found some humor in, so I wrote that down.
Yeah, I just wrote Billy Zane was the only character worth mentioning.
Yeah, the favorite character, I ended up picking I don't know what his name is, but the young upstart detective. Because it seemed like he was actively interested in the case, and they also were setting up the love story with the sister, is what it seemed like. I found his character the most tolerable of them, so
Okay.
I went with him.
I would not watch this show.
Yeah, it's not worth it. Especially because it got canceled after a season. You know it's not going to be resolved, and it's going to be a cliffhanger, so
was
it's not worth it.
Just too confusing, honestly.
Too confusing.
Next show is going to be Kyle XY.
Okay, this is my show. Okay, so Kyle XY. It was on air from 2006 to 2009. It ran for 3 seasons before it was abruptly canceled, so it never got a proper ending, but at some point between the cancellation of the show and now, the writers revealed how the show would have ended. So if you didn't get the closure, you could at least have some closure knowing how it ended. So From June 2006 to July 2008, it was the highest rated original series on ABC Family until it was unseated by The Secret Life of the American Teenager.
Classic.
So, an interesting thing about Kyle XY is that they aired a repeat of the show on ABC after it had aired on ABC Family, at least for the first, I think, 10 episodes they did that. So, the pilot got 2.6 million views for the pilot, and then when it was repeated on ABC, it got 5.2 million views.
Okay.
And so, interestingly enough, I couldn't find any ratings on Kyle XY. I couldn't find anything. I looked in multiple areas, so I don't know. It had to have at least rated somewhat well to get 3 seasons. So, my summary of Kyle XY. Don't look, don't read it.
Not looking.
Okay. Naked, alone, and covered in goo. Kyle was born and left in the woods, where he learns about human life by watching 2 people bang in a tent. A family adopts him. The dad has a big package for him. The mom watches him color. The sister leaves him unattended, and the brother gets him to find his missing porno magazine. Most importantly, though, he has no belly button. Sorry. Most importantly, though, he has no belly button. Gasp. Yo, can you get some juice over here?
Your summary was about how chaotic that show was.
This is the most chaotic pilot I've ever seen that somehow makes me love the show.
Okay, first off, the CGI was trash.
To be fair, though, it was 2006.
And he literally sticks his head in the tent of 2 people getting it on.
And it's like, he just unzips it enough that his face can fit through, so you're just seeing his face, like, emerge in this tent, and 2 people just casually having sex in the woods, and you just, imagine that's you, and you look up and just see a man's face, like, looking at you. Yeah.
The camera angles were weird. They were always zoomed in on
There
characters.
was so much panning.
And it was like a handheld, shaky camera. I don't know if that was a style choice or what. There were
Also, he drew the people having sex with crayons, just casually.
And they made some Michael Jackson jokes. There were some questionable things that were said.
Yeah.
The show was weird.
It was weird, but it was so entertaining.
It was, but what I enjoyed was it was so interesting before Kyle started talking that we just got to hear his thoughts.
I thought it was very, very interesting to get an internal dialogue, and it was very almost Little Mermaid in a way, where she's exploring the world and learning about the human life, and she's so excited and experiencing all these emotions, and Kyle is kind of the same way, where he's, he hears that piano, and he's, like, enamored by the sound of piano, or, learning about food, and getting decked and peeing himself.
We've all been there.
We've all been there. The crazy fight scene with the police officer with a baton, where he's just, like, going this weird back and forth, and he's covered in puke, and somehow these people are impressed. And then he comes up behind the mom and hugs her and kisses her neck because he saw the dad do that, and I was so uncomfortable, but it was so entertaining.
I think the problem with the show is, while the pilot entertained me, I struggled to see, like, where the show would go. Like,
That's fair.
I understand they could do a lot with having a human who, or not technically a human.
An alien.
Having someone who's essentially a child.
Yes, because he was just born.
In a teenager's body.
Right.
But I just, like, struggled to see the direction of the show. But, I mean, to be fair, there's one scene that the only time we paused and rewinded a show.
Rewound. It's okay.
Rewound. Was for this show, and it was probably the most I laughed.
I was so in awe that we had to go back, and it was specifically a scene where he's at the dinner table, and he is able to mimic things he's heard.
And this is the first time he ever speaks.
This is the first time he speaks to his family, and he just goes, "Yo, can I get some juice over here?" And he says it in this accent, and there's more to it. Juice me. And it was... I just was so it's just the way he delivered it. Whoever the actor was, he did a really good job of portraying this like character who's, you know, in this unknown environment and doesn't understand a lot of things and he doesn't know what's wrong and right, and that scene was hilarious.
It felt very like that's how someone would be if they came to a new planet and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting concept for a show, kind of more of like a sci-fi kind of show, which has been done, but not necessarily in that way. I mean, that was my favorite scene.
That was my favorite scene,
about.
yes.
I think favorite character would be Kyle.
I picked Kyle as well.
He's just naive. He doesn't really know what he's doing is wrong.
He's innocent. And
right.
I think I would watch it. Here's the thing. It's so bizarre that I feel like I'm going to get entertainment whether it's good or not.
I kind of struggled because I was like, while I enjoyed the pilot, would I really sit there and watch this show? And this is the one where I really couldn't answer yes or no. I guess if I had to answer, I'd probably say no at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But I would no, I'd probably say no.
I said yes because while I was uncomfortable, I was very entertained.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had a lot of fun watching this show.
Right.
So I think I put a yes with a question mark because I think so, but I'm not positive.
Okay. So the next show is going to be Lincoln Heights. So Lincoln Heights aired from 2007 to 2009, and it ran for 4 seasons and 43 episodes. Had 1.3 million viewers for the premiere and a 7.7 out of 10 on IMDb. This was another show that ran for 4 seasons. I couldn't find a single Rotten Tomatoes or any sort of score like that. Couldn't really find any background on this show either. A little summary. From the producers that brought you NCIS, Law and Order, CS Miami, and more, comes a new show that has your palms sweaty, knees weak, arms heavy, for a whole hour wondering who will die.
We were wondering who was going to die because someone had to die.
Well, in the way they did the music, they start off with like these dual camera shots.
Yeah, the camera work I thought was really interesting throughout the whole episode.
Yeah. In the way they did the music that made you feel in the pit of your stomach that something bad was going to happen. Obviously, at the end, something does happen. But the whole pilot, I was just kind of sitting there waiting for it to happen. And they also did a time jump in a pilot.
Yeah, which I thought was really interesting. It's a 4-month time jump. Yeah,
it's not there's another pilot that we're going to talk about that does a time jump.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
But, there was a lot of drama, first off.
A lot of conflict between, like, classism versus racism, and, you know, having a cop in a maybe not a great neighborhood, you know, and the conflict between neighbors and the place, if they feel comfortable.
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of a story and in terms of complete 40-minute, I thought it was actually done really well compared to a lot of the pilots we've watched.
I thought it was too.
I thought that there was a compelling story there. The characters, they made you care about them. Even a character who ends up getting shot and killed, I cared about him already just because of the way he acted throughout the pilot and the way that people spoke of him. One thing I will say is I kind of forgot the kind of comments that ABC Family could slip in.
Yeah. Yeah, they could get away with quite a bit.
And I also would just like to say, because I'm so sick of this trope.
Creepy boy following the girl trope.
That stalker guys are somehow romantic.
I wrote a note about it. I don't know why that was so popular, and I don't know why it is popular, but majority of the time, women do not like men who follow them around and don't say anything and are just quietly watching them. It's not attractive, and I don't know why it's portrayed as this thing that, like, will get women to be interested in a guy because he's, like, mysterious and always lurking. I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
I mean, for the most part, though, like, I enjoyed this. I thought there was funny moments. I thought there was some, like, more sad moments. There was a good mix of emotion, and I think I loved to watch the family interact with each other.
I thought the family dynamics were really nice, especially the dad, like, because, you know, there's not like I liked seeing like a full supportive family and this dad trying to be involved, you know, in his children's life, and maybe not always succeeding, you know, because he's busy.
Right.
But I liked that there was, and also because, you know, their house gets broken into, and that's like a really serious thing, and he acknowledges, he says, I messed up, like, that we can't do this anymore, it's not safe, like, I'm putting you guys in harm's way, and as a family they can decide that they want to do that, you know, they want to be in the house.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much all I guess I've had to say.
Same.
So my favorite character was Eddie, who's the dad.
Same.
I just like to see the way he interacted with his wife and his kids, and he was clearly, like, trying to keep his family together.
Right.
And they end up coming and kind of being there for him at the end.
Favorite
scene. I really liked when the mom went to the school and basically wrote on the money that the kids were stealing from her son for his lunch money, and how she, like, emailed the principal and was like, check your email. Like, I just like to watch how she kind of handled that whole situation.
Yeah, I went same with the mom and the son, but I went with her talking about the laxatives specifically, because I just really liked their interactions throughout the episode, her and her son. I thought was really well done.
He was like, did you kill her?
It's like, as a medical professional, I cannot suggest that you do this, but
I definitely would watch the show.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. I think it has an interesting concept, and seems like it would be an interesting watch. And I remember this being on around the time that we were watching ABC Family, but we just never got into it.
No, and I mean, there was a time when we watched, like, multiple shows, and I think the problem was they all, like, were in a row, so we couldn't sit there for 3 hours and watch when we were doing sports and at homework.
Right.
But it's definitely a show I would watch nowadays, even.
Yeah, that's about it.
And now we are taking a jump down to Melissa and Joey.
Oh, God. Melissa and Joey.
My God.
Okay.
Melissa and Joey ran from 2010 to 2015, and it had 104 episodes. Pilot had 2.15 million viewers, and this show, for a long time, was Wednesday's #1 cable telecast at, like, the 8 p.m. time slot. Cable. #1 cable show.
I can understand it, though.
No.
Let me put it this way. It's similar to A Big Bang Theory in terms of it's a comedy show that can appeal to a wide audience.
I guess.
Doesn't mean it's good.
I mean, critics didn't really like it. It got a 55 out of 100 on Metacritic. A little summary. Welcome to the show that answers the question, does one bad hair mistake make you a bad person? Join Melissa and Joey for 100+ episodes of Will They, Won't They action, where I'm sure they will in the end.
Sounds about right. Okay, we just got to get this out of the way. So, Joey, what are you doing with your hair?
He had his hair, like, buzzed, but then it was, like, dyed red or orange.
It was like he had a slight bit of hair, but, like, the sides were a different color than the top. And the thing is, he looks fine bald. Like, he's, you know, like, there's no issue with him being bald. He just shave your head.
They also had a scene where it looked like he had shaved his head, but then it went back. So I don't know if he shaved it partway through the pilot.
I don't know. It was very confusing.
They did call it out.
They did. They did have a comment about his hair.
I like a show being self-aware.
Yes.
We also just have to say the fact that they managed to get away with a joke saying that the girl wrote a poem that rhymed Mrs. Lunt.
With a word that...
You can use your imagination. If you don't know what it is, you're probably not old enough to listen to this.
Just know it is a bad word. And they also said the word, said vagino-American.
Yeah.
They got away with a lot of things that I was confused about.
Yeah, I mean, the humor was not great. The show's creepy. She basically lets a stranger take her kids to school
and move in to her house.
And nephew.
Yeah.
The show was just kind of chaotic.
It was very chaotic. I wasn't entirely sure what was going on. It felt like they needed another episode before he showed up almost. Like, you needed to set the stage that she's raising these teenagers and she's having a hard time, and then maybe he
moves in the second episode as opposed to the first. Like, he's introduced and then kind of talk about the idea. It was just, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready to move on.
Yeah, so my favorite character, I picked the son. He was the least awful.
Yeah, I didn't really have one. I wrote Melissa ? And then I was like, I don't really think she was my favorite.
Scene-wise, I liked the one where her date shows up and she just kind of leads him around the house and then kisses him and kicks him out. And I was like, that was entertaining enough.
Yeah, I did the scene where they made fun of Joey's hair just because I said, I like them being self-aware. I would not watch the show.
Yeah, I had some thoughts. I was like, maybe I would just for the entertainment value, but considering it's 5 seasons, I can't be invested in a show like that and not hate myself.
Okay, we're going to move on.
All right.
To Motherland, Fort Salem. I thought it was Motherhood.
Motherland, Fort Salem. So actually, the show premiered in March of 2020.
Oh.
So it has run for 1 season. It was renewed for a 2nd season and probably is delayed due to COVID restrictions. So interestingly, this show was executive produced by Will Ferrell and Adam McKay.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Which I thought was interesting. The language for the witch language, which is called Menishi, something like that. But the guy who worked on that language is named David J. Peterson, and he did the language for Game of Thrones.
Okay.
So it has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 67%, Metacritic score of 49%, and it had 0.46 million viewers on its premiere.
Okay.
So now a summary of the show. Okay. Witches have formed their own military, where young ladies go to learn how to shriek like Black Canary. Follow 3 paired witches, Rael, Tally, and Abigail, each with their own set of baggage, learn how to get along, or they all fail. The evil spree, who light their faces on fire to change appearance and get people to kill themselves in mass suicides, have infiltrated the ministry.
Yeah, I mean, I will say they did put a suicide prevention phone number at the end of the show, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah, there was a lot of suicide in this pilot.
I actually really liked the intro, though.
That is something I noticed. It felt very like Game of Thrones, Westworld.
Almost like Hunger Games at times.
Yeah.
I actually thought this show was very intriguing.
I was interested. It was a show that I could get into. I'm not positive that I would necessarily like it, but there was enough interesting concepts going on that I could see myself getting into it.
I mean, I like the fact that it's an all-female army and that they're, like, all pretty much teenager, young adults.
It's also interesting that in this world, like, witches are a known, accepted thing.
Right.
Like, it's not people
Well, because a
burning the
lot
witches,
of times
yeah.
it's, like, the negative. They're always portrayed
Right.
as, like...
Or they're in hiding, or,
Right.
you know, it's... In this, it's very much like... The one girl gets on the plane and like a guy willingly is like, "Oh, you take my flight. Thank you for your service," kind of deal. So I thought that was really interesting.
It was maybe, to me, the most interesting ending of any of the pilots we watched.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is a show that I could see myself liking it.
But I could also see it going badly very quickly.
Right. So it all depends on how they kind of write the show. I know the show is currently still going. I mean, like you said, there's a delay in production.
It was not canceled.
They could find a way to ruin it for sure.
Yeah, I was iffy on if I would watch it or not. I ended up saying yes, but tentatively.
Yeah. No, I said I would watch it. I think my favorite character was Rael.
Mine was Rael as well. She's the most complex of the 3 lead witches.
My favorite scene was where I think Abigail goes into the main witch's office and basically gets like schooled and gets a reality check. That was a nice moment for me.
So I actually picked the opening scene because I just was not expecting it.
Yeah.
I thought it was, and it was really well done and interesting that there was enough mystery element to it that I didn't feel like I didn't know what was going on. It was more like, oh, I wonder what happened here, and I'm sure we'll get, explanation as we go along. But
I mean, in terms of like a shock factor, yeah,
Yeah.
like it definitely was there. We both were kind of just like, oh, okay, that
Like,
happened.
oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, I think overall it was an interesting show. I definitely was
Yeah.
captivated my attention.
Same here.
Yeah. Technically, next is Perfectionist, but
We should probably
do
do
Pretty Little Liars
first,
Okay.
I think. So, Pretty Little Liars. What a show.
So we've both seen this show all the way through.
All the way through. I watched it out of order.
Right.
Technically, I started in like season 5, and then before the show ended, I went back and watched up to where I had gotten to.
Right.
But it ran from 2010 to 2017, 7 seasons. It was the highest rated series at ABC Family, and it was the most watched series on a network debut with 2.47 million viewers. The finale of the show had 1.41 million viewers, which was the second highest rating of the night. It was actually first planned for the WB in 2005 before it was the WB was rebranded as the CW, and then the show was shopped over to ABC Family. And so, interestingly enough, this is the only show I found something like this. Pretty Little Liars retained 100% of their audience from the first episode to the second episode.
That's crazy.
So in terms of a pilot doing a good job, I think that's a clear indicator.
And to be fair to the show, we'll talk about it. I think it does do a really good job.
I think so too. So the series is actually based on a book series by author Sarah Shepard, who actually had 3 shows at ABC Family. The second one being The Perfectionist, which we will cover after this. And it had mixed reviews for the pilot. It had a 54% on Metacritic and a 69% on Rotten Tomatoes. So now I've got a summary for you. Allison, an actual teen playing a teen, goes missing. Her 4 not teenage friends, Spencer, Hannah, Aria, and Emily, have moved on with their lives until a tragic discovery brings them back together. All 4 have something to hide from their past, and they start receiving messages from a mysterious figure. Who is A?
So
This pilot's really good.
it's really good.
It's really entertaining.
And I haven't watched this pilot. It's been a while since I've watched it, but it moves really well.
It is able to introduce the show concept and not feel rushed. And I think part of the reason that works is because there's a heavy focus on Arya, specifically of the girls, where it's being told from her point of view, where you get her family leaving for reasons unknown.
Byron Montgomery is the worst, although he's not the worst.
He's not the worst parent.
But he sucks.
But anyways, and it follows her moving back to the school after being gone a year. And I think this is a show that, the other show we talked about that does a time jump. It has a year time jump
Yes.
from when Allison goes missing to the present day where the show takes place.
Yes. I mean, the idea of A is super interesting. I love there's so many questions you have. I like how they did the flashback scenes. I think those were done well.
Right.
I think there's
Well,
issues.
there's a serious issue with the way they portray teen romances with adults.
specifically with the teacher.
It is disturbing,
Yeah.
but also Spencer with her sister's boyfriend
Right. There's multiple
fiancé.
multiple times it happens and
throughout the show.
this show is kind of known for doing these inappropriate relationships, which again, when your target audience is
Teenage
high school,
girls,
middle
yeah.
school, high school girls, and they think that this is like a romantic thing, that's problematic. So, I mean, obviously there's issues. I'm not saying there isn't.
The thing that's interesting is in the book series, this is a relationship that exists, but it's not a lasting relationship. Like, they end things
Right.
because Arya recognizes that this is inappropriate.
Right.
And, he's creepy. In this show, spoiler alert, they end up getting married.
Yeah, there's really no repercussions for his actions.
Nope.
You also find out that he knew Arya was a high schooler at the time.
Right. In the pilot, it's implied that she goes to a bar, so he may not know that
Well-
she is a high schooler, which understandable, but then they continue to have
Right.
share a kiss in a funeral space, which is so romantic.
Church is watching you.
Church is watching you.
But I really like the music.
Very well done. I
Yeah.
love the opening.
Yeah.
I think the opening's really interesting, and I've always liked that.
Yeah, I just think as in terms of a pilot, and you just said that it had a 100% retention rate. I understand why.
Yeah.
Because even the end, when they all they're getting the texts and messages throughout the show, and then at the end when they all get it at once, it's just so much about that pilot was done well. I mean, in terms of a 40 minutes of trying to get someone hooked on a show, I think it's one of the better ones out there.
I think so too. So this one was hard because I was trying to only focus on the pilot because I know all these characters and I know, what kind of things they go through. My favorite character from the pilot was Emily.
I agree.
Okay. I liked all the stuff with her and Maya, and I liked her interactions with the other girls, because you kind of see that they're not necessarily friends anymore.
Right.
So I liked that dynamic a lot.
Yeah. I think I had a favorite quote.
Okay.
Which was, "Hope breeds eternal misery," which I can relate.
Yes.
And my favorite scene specifically was the end where they all get the text and they
Okay.
read it out loud.
So my favorite scene was when they find the body.
Mm-hmm.
Just the music choice and the way they kind of had the panning to all the different characters kind of finding out at the same time, I thought was really well done.
I think the reason why that wasn't my favorite is because they do kind of the same scene a season finale later on, and I think that one's done better.
That
which
is fair.
Why I think I did that. I would watch it.
Well, I mean, clearly I watched the whole show. So.
I mean, we know what a shit show the end is.
The ending is... I mean, the boy Ren gets turned into a diamond.
Into a diamond.
He becomes a diamond. It becomes absolutely ridiculous. There's a scene where a girl who is jumps on top of an ambulance and rides away on top of it to escape a scene, and just the image of this girl riding on top of an ambulance is, to this day, one of my favorite things.
It's
in
ingrained
life.
in my brain.
It's ingrained. There's Shower Harvey. There are so many absolutely ridiculous things in this show.
But the pilot was done very well.
The first season specifically,
2 seasons
I think
were
are
good.
done really well, and then things go off the rails.
All right, so we are going to move on to The Perfectionist, which is a spin-off of Pretty Little Liars.
Yeah, so The Perfectionist is also loosely based on a book by Sarah Shepard, who wrote Pretty Little Liars. And for some reason, in the books, there is no correlation between Pretty Little Liars universe and the Perfectionist universe, but for some reason, they decided that they were going to throw in some of the cast from Pretty Little Liars in this show. For some reason. I don't know why, if they thought that would draw in more viewers. They were trying to capture off of, the fame of that show.
Sorry, I just read a line that I wrote.
Okay, so the show lasted 1 season. What a surprise.
Shocker.
It started in March of 2019 and then was canceled after 10 episodes. The pilot had a total of 0.46 million viewers.
Ooh.
It had an average rating of 7.87. And that's all I have.
Do you have a summary?
I do have a summary. Tensions are high at Beacon Heights Academy. Oh god, okay. Okay, just get it. Tensions are high at Beacon Heights University. Allison De Laurentiis, a pretty little liar, is hired as a teaching assistant by Mona, an A, and begins to notice strange things among a group of students. Blackmail, extortion, creepy relationships, impalement. What will it take for these students to crack? Remember, Big Brother is watching.
Okay.
What did we watch?
There was
What did we
so
watch?
confusing. We watched all of Pretty Little Liars, and there was times where you would have had to have seen the show for some of it to make sense.
Especially because they make Allison like the main character. And you have to know things about her because you have to know about her past, because they talk about how one of the students knew about her past and how they thought it might help the scenario.
And I think also knowing about Mona's past, because she seems like she's crazy, which we know from Pretty Little Liars that she kind of has like a dual personality
Right.
thing.
Can we also talk about how at the end of Pretty Little Liars, spoiler alerts, if you haven't seen the show and you're wanting to watch... spoiler alerts, if you haven't seen the show and were for some reason planning to watch it now, at the end of the series, Mona moves to France and keeps 2 people in a box, like, underneath her house.
But suddenly, a few years later, she is now an admissions
Assistant at a university
Right.
on the West Coast, and, like, I don't know, are these people dead? Like, are we supposed to assume they're dead?
Don't know.
Anyway, yes.
There was so much going on. There were so many characters. It was just very confusing at times. It felt really chaotic. There wasn't really a plot. We kept
No.
saying, like, what
What's
is
the
the
plot?
story?
They kept introducing these characters and some conflicts the characters had, but I felt like they were trying to make the pilot similar to Pretty Little Liars because they had the flashbacks. They had someone dying in the pilot. But I just don't feel like I got the information I would need to understand the motives of these characters, and also it ends with like a room with a bunch of cameras. Like,
Yeah, it
very
was-
1984-esque, which is, you know, the Big Brother thing, but
Yeah, it was very confusing. I didn't really understand what the point of all that was. I'm sure if you watch the next 9 episodes, it might come up.
guess, but and then the beginning felt really butchered.
The line I was laughing about
Yep.
was, guess 2 moms
Don't
don't always
always-
make a right.
That was my favorite line as well. I wrote that down.
I think to me, like, Mona was the best.
Yeah, I was either gonna say Dylan or Mona. I was having a hard time picking a favorite character.
I liked when Mona showed up at the house with the knife. And
Yes.
she's like, I brought pie.
that was a real Mona moment.
I know this is a show that I could get wrapped into, but I can't do that to myself. So
It's
a
not
no.
worth it.
It's
not
a no
worth
for
it,
me.
no. And I did like the part where she was like tearing the wallpaper and it was like they're watching. I thought that
Right.
was interesting, but there was so much else wrong.
Because that scene specifically reminded me of Pretty Little Liars.
Yeah, not again. It's not worth it.
No.
And the way we talked about it, we said that it felt like the end of Pretty Little Liars transferred over, and you can't start with crazy.
Yeah, and I have too much respect now as an adult
Right.
that I didn't have when I was in college to put myself through that.
To just put it away and say no.
Yeah, say no. Okay, so next show is going to be Secret Life of the American Teenager. This is another show that we have both watched. I unfortunately watched all of this show. Alyssa maybe saw like 2 seasons. If that.
I saw parts of later seasons. I watched all of season 1, sadly, and I saw parts of season 2 and maybe 3. I mean, you told me how the show ends, so I'm aware of how it ends.
Yeah.
So, Secret Life of the American Teenager was on air from 2008 to 2013 and ran for 5 seasons. Its premiere had 2.82 million viewers, which was the highest rated debut on the channel at that time. So, surprisingly, it had mixed to negative reviews. Metacritic, it had a score of 48%, and it was the highest rated in the 12 to 34 female demographic, and also did really well in the 18 to 48-year-old demographic. The finale of season 1 had 4.5 million viewers.
Oh my god.
Which was almost 2 million more than the premiere.
And that's high for ABC Family shows.
And even interesting, the second season premiere had 4.68 million viewers.
Wow.
Talk about getting a high amount of people to watch the show.
It was a big show.
It was a big
I knew
show.
a bunch of people who watched it, and I remember like people would talk about it at school. So I'm not surprised.
I think why it had such a high audience is because it was a teenage pregnancy drama show. I mean, terribly done in many, many different fronts. But it was considered controversial when we were in middle school and high school when it was airing. Like, that was a controversial show. Like, I knew people who were not allowed to watch it.
Right.
We watched it when our mom was not home.
Yeah. And this is one of those shows that I alluded to that parents didn't like it because they thought it was kind of straying from the ABC or the family aspect.
Yes.
But yeah, that's interesting.
All right, so now I have a summary. Amy is, gasp, pregnant. Her striped undershirts under tank top look seduce the older, mysterious Ricky, a bad boy with dimples for days. Her friends have terrible ideas of how to deal with pregnancy, and Ben falls for any dame he looks at. Be confused as you watch a group of teenagers with more conflict and drama than an episode of Days of Our Lives.
Okay, what I will say is the way that these characters handle the situation is how 14 and 15-year-olds would handle that situation.
Yeah, understandably, but it's just so ridiculous. The fashion sense is ridiculous. The use of girlfriend as the opening song. I love Avril Lavigne, but everything about it is so over the top.
Can we talk about the fact that within 2 minutes of the show, you know that Amy is pregnant? Again, with the same as 10 Things I Hate About You, I think they overdid characterizations. The jock, the religious girl, the bad boy.
The promiscuous girl.
Right, like the emo sister, like they overdid these characterizations. The writing is very cringy.
The writing is so uncomfortable.
Well, okay. There was like 2 scenes that I thought there was a therapy scene that I thought was
Yes.
actually written really well.
That was my favorite scene.
Yes, but besides that, there was a lot of dramatic cuts.
There was also some, like, the gross dinner conversation, like, the
Yeah.
parents, like, talking about stuff, and everyone's obsessed with football for some reason.
Yeah, they're not,
And they're
even,
not
in
even
the
in the
South. I
South,
think it's
you know?
California.
And
which-
then Jack, the religious girl's boyfriend, is, like, super, like, turned on while trying to rally the football team, and
he gets like a boner,
basically, he's, like, way too horny to be in high school.
Yeah, it just felt like they took all those stereotypes and just shoved them down your throat.
There was so much going on in the first episode. And
Yeah.
also the way it ends. Like, it just, nothing about it made sense for a pilot.
Yeah, again, Ben is creepy.
Oh, God, I
He
hate Ben.
basically wanted Grace.
Yeah.
When he couldn't get her, he moved on to the next person.
Yep.
He's like obsessed with having sex as well.
Yes.
I have a hard time
Ugh.
believing that I watched this entire show.
Yeah. It's not good. Especially the pilot. The pilot is not good.
No. I mean, we can just move into favorites.
Okay.
My favorite character, I think for the pilot alone, I would go with Alice.
The
who's-
mom.
No, Ben's friend.
Oh, Alice. Yes.
Because she
Henry.
basically calls the guys out on their shit.
Yeah.
She's a voice of reason. Second character would be Adrian, just because she does whatever she wants.
I picked Adrian or Lauren, the one friend who actually has, like, you should probably go to your doctor,
Right.
and, to confirm the pregnancy and figure out what you're going to do with it. And Adrian, because I don't necessarily like the way they portray her. I really hate the trope that girls who are, like, the promiscuous girl trope. I hate that that's a thing that was, at the time was very common.
Right.
Because she's clearly, like, she has standards. She, like, has her values and doesn't let people dictate how she does things. And
Right.
I don't know, there's sometimes, like, the confident women like that trope, it's then perceived like she's, like, slutty. And,
Yeah.
and I know they continue to do that as the show goes on.
They do. And
So-
if we're being honest, like, as a total collective, like, whole entire show of me watching, I think Adrian's probably one of the better characters.
Yeah.
But that is something that kind of keeps going on.
Yeah, from what I remembered, I know they just, like, the treatment of her character, I'm not a big fan of.
I'm with you. My favorite scene was the therapy scene. I thought
Yeah.
that was where the writing was actually really well done.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting to portray this guy who got this teenager pregnant as this kid who had a really shitty home life and uses sex as a way to act out and deal with his problems. And that's a really realistic thing. And I thought that was really
Right.
interesting to explore that ideal.
And it brings some sympathy to him and makes him seem more, like, human.
Right.
This one's hard because I watched this entire show, so obviously I would have watched this show.
Based on the pilot, though, like, if you pretend you hadn't seen this show, if you had just seen this pilot as a 24-year-old, what do you think you would have done?
I will say there's a lot of conflict, and I could see there's obviously going to be a lot of potential storylines. However, due to how bad the writing is, I would probably say no. I don't think I can stomach it at this point.
I said a firm nothing. I can't, like, no.
Yeah.
I didn't even watch the whole show. I watched a season, and even then, it was not a show I really liked. Even when I was that age, I wasn't really interested or invested in it. So I certainly am not invested in it as an adult.
I mean, if we're being honest, I just really liked Ricky.
Wait, no, that's the. Did you like my dimples for days? Comment?
Yeah,
I thought you would
'cause
appreciate that.
He was like my crush. So
Fair.
part of the reason why I watched. I was also like a high schooler, so they were targeting me.
We were in middle school.
I think I was in middle school when I started, so they drew me in.
Yeah.
Let's move on. This is the last show for this group is Siren.
All right, Siren. So Siren premiered in 2018 to 2020, and it ran for 3 seasons, and it just got canceled within the past couple of months. So the pilot had 0.87 million viewers, and it was actually really well received by critics. It had a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. And so its viewing dropped, but it held roughly around 500,000 viewers throughout the remainder of the show. So I don't know what exactly caused it to be canceled. I don't know if it necessarily was just because the ratings didn't improve or what, but that's really about all the background I could find. So let me give you a summary.
Okay.
Okay. If you thought you were getting The Little Mermaid, H2O, or the 13th year levels of good-hearted merpeople fun, guess again. A mermaid gets hit on by a creepy man looking for young stowaways to have sex with, and then kills him by throwing him out his windshield. Some deadliest catch fishermen wrangle in something they shouldn't have, and when the military takes her away, Rin, a mermaid, searches for one of her own by becoming human. This fish-out-of-water story takes some unexpected dives.
My God. Like, okay. This is, I don't even know.
So, here's what I have to say about the pilot. I thought, as a pilot, it was actually pretty well done in terms of setting up the story and the characters, but this is just not something that I'm into.
No, like...
Honestly, it's not a bad pilot. I'm not really into the concept.
Yeah, I didn't like it, for being honest. Okay.
There was so much that just made me uncomfortable, and, like...
The acting at times was really cringy.
Yeah.
There was, like, a line where they're like, the mom said that he had a thing for wild girls.
Oh, yeah. I was like, that's really okay.
I mean, the pedo man got what he deserved.
Oh, he did get what he deserved.
Got thrown out the window.
It felt, honestly, it kind of felt almost like they were trying to replicate Kyle XY in a way.
Right.
But it didn't work because we didn't have a monologue for her. Whereas in Kyle XY, I think it worked because we got some internal monologue. With her, you had to just visually do it, and I don't think it was strong enough to hold that, you know?
And you just watched her kill people.
And eat rats.
Yeah.
And there's, like, way too many fishermen, so there's no eye candy. Like, none of the men there are my type at all,
No.
so I couldn't get into, you know, just in terms of looking.
Right. And our mom walked.
I wrote a note about it.
Our mom came home from work when we were watching this the other night, and she came in right around the time she ate the rat. She was like, "Oh my God!" And she said, "Is this?"
She said, "Is this Breaking Bad?" I'm like, Mom, this is not Breaking Bad. What are you talking about?
But yeah, I really don't have much to say.
Yeah, the one thing I thought was interesting is that I was interested in the way they kind of discussed the morality of, like, the mer people, in the sense that they were violent, you know, killing people in water because it's instinctive, and humans, you know, killed them because of that. And that was at least interesting, but it's just not the kind of show that I like, and the pilot wasn't strong enough for me to, like, get invested in.
Like, I straight up hated this pilot. I'm sorry. I didn't like it.
That's fair.
My favorite scene was when the pedophile got thrown out the window.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it was so uncomfortable.
It was very-
Just him talking, putting her hand on his crotch and being like, I know this is what you came for.
And especially because her mom was watching from the kitchen.
Oh, it was just like, it was just so uncomfortable.
We're both in our mid-20s, but I still cannot watch uncomfortable scenes on TV with my parents in the room.
Yeah. So my favorite character was the girlfriend. I don't know what her name is, but the main character's girlfriend.
The wild girl.
Yes, because she seems like she's got a good head on her shoulders. She cares about her dad, going to cook him dinner, just to, be involved in his life and trying to be present. And I just liked all the scenes with her in it the most.
I went with Ben, who was the main guy, mostly just because he was trying to do the right thing. He was trying to help out the girl. But I sensed there could be a relationship there at some point, which I do not like.
So when I was looking up the background, so we're not gonna watch it. So I was just trying to read some things about the characters to get names. And Ben and Rin have a relationship. They're lovers, but then she's also lovers with his girlfriend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in the third season, they
Okay.
become lovers.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, that's an interesting twist I didn't see coming, but
I mean, yeah, I can get behind that, but still didn't like the pilot.
yeah,
I would not watch the show.
I said no. I said it didn't seem necessarily bad, but it's not something I'm interested in. Like,
Yeah.
I like some sci-fi shows, like for instance, like Motherhood Fort Salem.
Right.
That's sci-fi-esque, but seems more entertaining.
Yeah. Okay, so we are gonna get into our rankings. We're gonna go from worst to first.
Worst to first.
Yeah. Do you want to start this time? I feel like I always start.
So, and the last place, I put Secret Life of the American Teenager.
Fair.
Because so ridiculous. I can't.
I went with Melissa and Joey. I hated everything about it.
That's fair. So for 11, I put The Perfectionist. Because, my God, what a mess.
11, I went with Guilt. Basically the same thing. It was so chaotic.
10, I went with Guilt. It just, I couldn't follow.
10, I went with Siren. I just mentioned I hated it, and I don't have anything more to say.
9, I went with Siren. Same thing.
Yeah. 9, I went with Secret Life of the American Teenager. I just think the writing is horrible.
8, I went with Melissa and Joey because at least there was some comedic value of the shows that I necessarily didn't like as much.
I did for 8 The Perfectionist. Just couldn't get behind it.
It's good to know our bottom 5 is the same.
Yeah.
Good taste.
Yeah.
So number 7, I put Motherhood Fort Salem.
No, it's Motherland.
Oh God, damn it! I thought I'd fix that.
No.
Did I not?
It's Motherland.
For number 7, I put Motherland Fort Salem because I could see myself getting into it, but I just wasn't as strong as some of the other ones.
That's fair. Number 7, I went with 10 Things I Hate About You. I don't know, I wasn't the biggest fan of that show. It was overdone.
So for number 6, I did 10 Things I Hate About You. I thought some of the comedy was really well done, and I could see some of the situational things being an issue, but it was strong enough that I could see myself watching it.
6, I went with Kyle XY. It was maybe one of the more entertaining pilots, but it was just so weird too that I had a hard time ranking it higher.
So number 5, I put The Fosters. I thought as a pilot it was well done, and there was a lot of interesting concepts, but that style of show necessarily isn't something that I'm traditionally drawn to, so I liked it, but I don't necessarily know, like, that wouldn't be my go-to choice.
Number 5, I went with Motherland Fort Salem. I think it's a show I could get into, for sure. But just based off the pilot alone, it was not my favorite. It wasn't the most well done, I don't think.
So number 4, I put Kyle XY. I just thought it was so chaotic, but so entertaining. There's a way that some of these shows further down the list are chaotic, but I just was having so much fun watching all the interactions, and how the ridiculous things that were happening was very entertaining.
Yeah. Number 4, I did Foster's. It might be a little biased because I've seen most of the show, but I think the character interactions are done really well, and I think there's a lot of concepts in it that make it more than just a typical, like, teen drama show.
And we have the same top 3.
Yeah.
So again, good to know we're on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, I went with Lincoln Heights. I thought it was a really well done pilot. I was entertained and I was invested in the characters and the story.
Yeah, 3, I went with Bunheads. I love the humor of, like, the Gilmore Girls, how that dry humor is. And I just thought that the concept was really interesting, and it kind of wasn't what I expected it to be.
So, number 2, I put Pretty Little Liars. As just looking solely at the pilot, I think this was maybe the strongest pilot. And clearly, if it retained over 100% of its audience, then, people thought the same. I think it just set up the story really well and very clearly explained what was happening. And there were things that you didn't know, but you're going to learn as you go along, so.
Yeah, number 2, I did Pretty Little Liars as well. I just think that in terms of a captivating pilot, something that would draw someone back, to me it was the one that would do that the most. I just think that my number 1 had a little bit of a stronger story as a whole.
So number 1, I went with Bunheads. I thought the premise of the show was so unique and so different and what I was not expecting, and I love Gilmore Girls, so I really appreciated, the quick, dry humor and the wit, and I also dance, so I can appreciate the dance aspect of it, and if I was going to watch a show, this is the one I would watch first of these.
See, mine is Lincoln Heights. That's the one I would watch. I just think that it was such a well-done 40-minute segment. I loved the family interactions. I loved the seriousness of it mixed with some lighthearted moments. And I just thought it was one of those shows where I could see where it could go in the future. And it was something that I would want to watch.
All right. Well, got through it.
We did our first TV pilot series.
Very interesting concept, and it'll be interesting to do the second half because I think we've seen more shows in the second half than we did in the first half, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, I think we have. It's also, we're going to do different categories, might do like medical shows at some point, do
like crime shows.
Do some older shows. I just think it's a fun segment. It's interesting to watch all these pilot episodes and kind of some of these shows that I love, to me, have some of the worst pilots.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to judge, would you really watch a show just based off the pilot, knowing that I've watched shows that's, the pilot's not great.
Right. Or, for instance, like a show like Lost, which is highly regarded as one of the best pilots of all time, solely just because of the amount of money they spent on it.
Right.
It's very interesting to see if a pilot can get your attention and keep your attention for you to keep watching, in the sense of it maybe isn't the strongest, but it could get you enough that it then improves from there on to then draw you in.
That's it.
All right. Well, we will see you next time. Have a good 2021. Even though you're probably going to be listening to this in like February or March.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's going well for you.
Let's hope for future us in 2021. I wouldn't be surprised if I was still disappointed with life. But let's hope there's some pleasant surprises.
Yeah. All right. See you later.
Bye. We would like to thank Joseph McDade for our intro music. He provides free music available for all kinds of creative use. The song that we used is called Sunrise Expedition, and you can find it and his other music on his website, josephmcdade.com. If you would like to reach us, you can email us at r3podcasts@gmail.com. That's R, the number 3, podcasts@gmail.com. Or you can find us on Instagram by searching Research Rank Repeat.